Stop chasing your passion. You see, my dad once asked me what the word passion meant. I explained it the way motivational posters explain it. Finding the thing you love, doing it for a living, waking up excited every day. That made him roll his eyes. He called it stupid. He said kids are dumb. It's a funny observation from a guy who never thought about work as something he's supposed to enjoy. He didn't have the luxurious time and space needed to figure out his passions. And as someone who benefited from all the jobs that he did, I think that can be a good thing. Follow your passions is probably the most repeated career advice in the last 30 years. It's also advice mostly given by people after it worked for them. Nobody writes a bestseller called "I followed my passion and now I need a roommate." It's on coffee mugs, it's on graduation speeches, it's the climax of every documentary about somebody who quit their job to make artisanal hot sauce and somehow it all worked out. And it's not wrong exactly, it's just incomplete. Because passions change. That's the part we all forget. You're passionate about photography at 22, then you get really into cooking. Then you go through a period where you're convinced the answer is real estate. Everybody has a real estate phase. Then you find something else. And somewhere in all of that jumping, you start to wonder if something is wrong with you. Why can't you just pick the thing and stick with it? Why does the excitement always fade? Why do you keep starting over? You're not broken, you're just following weather patterns and calling them a compass. I noticed from the inside. When I was a kid, my dad would get excited about something and I would get excited about it too, because that's what kids do. We catch the enthusiasm of the people we love. I once won a race when I was 8 years old and suddenly I was a sprinter. And now we were buying running shoes, I was training, and I was a sprinter now aiming for the Olympics. Then Taekwondo, full commitment, belt ceremonies, the whole thing. Then Kirtan, learning tabla, the singing, the whole practice. I didn't hate any of these things. I liked them fine, but they weren't mine. I was living inside someone else's dreams, someone else's excitements, and I was calling it passion. And when his excitement moved on, so did mine. Then with friends, I started playing poker, but it was never coming from inside me in the first place. A lot of what we call passion is just proximity. Somebody we love gets excited, so we catch it. Their dream becomes our dream. Their obsession becomes our hobby. And sometimes we spend years to force ourselves to love something because we genuinely love the person who introduced it to us. When I got older and started making my own choices, something felt different. Writing felt different. Designing things felt different. Building something from nothing felt different. It wasn't because they were always fun. Sometimes they were frustrating and slow, and I couldn't figure out why it wasn't working, but I kept going anyways. And that wasn't because I decided to, it was because I really couldn't stop even if I wanted to. And that's the difference. Passion is what you love when the conditions are right. Obsession is what you can't turn off even if you wanted to. Passion says, I love this. I want to do this. This makes me happy. Obsession says, I'm thinking about this at 2 a.m. and I don't know why. You choose a passion, and I personally believe your obsessions choose you. And discovering obsessions usually happens sideways. You're not sitting down and finding your life's purpose. You're just trying things, and one day something grabs you in a way you can't entirely explain, and you realize it's been grabbing you for a while. You just weren't paying attention. My obsession is novelty, learning things, turning them over, finding the angle nobody else has found, and then handing it to someone in a way that makes them see it different. The writing isn't the obsession, the writing is how the obsession gets out. I didn't decide that. I just eventually noticed there was a consistent thread across everything I kept going back to, regardless of whether anyone was paying attention or even paying me. That's why I've never been able to answer the question, what do you do? On paper, I've been a teacher, a poet, a musician, a speaker, an author, TV writer guy who makes videos on the internet, and they all look like different careers. They never felt different to me. They all felt like the same obsession in different drip. And I want to be honest about what that costs. My obsession with writing has given me books. It's given me opportunities. It's given me a life I couldn't have imagined from where I started. It's also stolen weekends, relationships, sleep, and entire conversations where I was physically there but mentally off at my desk writing something out. I have a song called Rad as Hate. It's called that because of that was the name of the beat. And I remember starting this after hearing this funky beat, but I also had a birthday to attend. And 3 hours went by and I was still working on this, completely losing track of time. And I remember at this birthday party was a girl I really liked. And when I finally finished this song and I got to the party, she had already left. And I was bummed, but I was more excited about this song getting done. Obsessions are powerful because they don't ask permission. They don't care if it's convenient. That's why they can build something amazing. It's also why they can eat you alive if you're not paying attention. This isn't a warning. It's just an honest version. The same quality that makes an obsession reliable makes it relentless. You don't get one without the other. And here's how you know the difference between a passion and an obsession. Think about video games for a second. You buy them, you play them, not to finish them. You want to play them. The journey is the reward. And if the journey was too easy, meaning if the game isn't challenging enough, you'll feel ripped off. That's the signal. For anything to work long term, you have to make the journey through the high effort. the low immediate reward zone. And the only thing that gets you through that zone without quitting is genuinely finding the difficulty interesting. Not fun exactly, just interesting. The problems need to feel like puzzles, not punishment. So here's a test. Do the challenges around things excite you or drain you? Not the wins, not the results, not the problems or the obstacles, the moments where it isn't working. If the problems feel like interesting puzzles, you're probably in obsession territory. If the problems feel like reasons to quit, you're probably in passion territory. I remember my buddy who was an accountant, when he saw I was getting book royalties in US dollars, Canadian dollars, British pounds, euros, and Indian rupees, he was like, this is gonna be complicated. And with a big smile on his face, he's like, I can figure it out. And I was looking at him like, you're a fucking nerd. But I realized he was using his obsession. There's a book called Gadsby, written in 1939 by Ernest Vincent Wright. 50,000 words of full novel written in English without using the letter E. Not once. In the language where E is the most common letter, where you can barely construct a sentence without it. Wright apparently tied down the E key on his typewriter so he couldn't accidentally use it. A person with a passion for writing hears that and thinks this sounds like a nightmare. A person obsessed with language hears this and thinks, wait, how would you even do that? Let me try. So this is me trying. I want to put words in your brain so you'll think I'm cool and throw cash my way so I can buy stupid stuff nobody can afford. That sentence didn't contain the letter E. And if you're obsessed with language, you probably stopped listening to the essay and started to write your own. Not being able to use the letter E isn't the punishment, it's the whole point. What makes it challenging is what makes it fun. That's obsession. The obstacle is the invitation. You don't have to make money from your obsession. In fact, getting money involved is how often you lose the love for it. The moment your obsession has a boss, a deadline, a client, a revenue target, a relationship changes. Suddenly you're not doing it because you can't stop. You're doing it because you have to. And have to and can't stop are very different engines. Nor do you have to share it on social. That's the whole different game that's going to make you resent the thing that once filled you up with life. Plenty of people work regular jobs and come home to their obsession. The police officer who spends weekends building furniture, the teacher who writes novels no one's ever going to read, the finance bro who's one of the best photographers in the city and has no interest in doing it professionally because he knows exactly what that would do to it. That's not failure, that's wisdom. That's protecting the obsession. So how do you find your obsession if you haven't? It's trial and error. That's the honest answer. Just fuck around and find out. Try things, a lot of things. Not to find the thing, just to stay curious. And wait for the moment something grabs you in the chest in a way that's hard to explain. When you find yourself thinking about it even when you're doing something else, when the problems around it feel interesting instead of exhausting, when you lose track of time inside of it, that's a signal. You won't manufacture it, you'll recognize it. And I think everyone has one. Not everyone figures out what it is. And I think people who are living their most authentic lives are usually the ones who have, because everything they do starts to point in the same direction, even when it looks different on the outside. My dad wasn't wrong that passion is a flimsy foundation for life, and it can be dumb. He just didn't realize he has obsessions. Which now that I think about it, he has plenty. Every weekend, the gardening, hours out there, never needing to be told, never complained about it being hard work, never asked if he could scale it, never tried to monetize the tomatoes, never built a brand around the roses. He just loved it. And maybe that's why it survived. When the work is the reward, you found your obsession. He never followed his passion. He just kept showing up to the same thing for 30 years, which might be a better definition of obsession anyways. And maybe that's okay.